Hi and welcome to this Blender tutorial. Today we'll be taking a look at how to quick model a 3D character largely by extruding a point and using a few key modifiers. We'll be using a mirror modifier, so we just have to build half of our model, half the character, and we will be using a skin modifier. So we're basically kind of making a stick figure, but the skin modifier will sort of flesh out our character so it doesn't look exactly like a stick figure. It'll look a little more substantial. And then finally we'll be using a surface modifier in order to give it a little bit more complexity. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and begin. So here we're in our 3D workspace. We're looking at our default cube. We can start by converting our cube into a point. To do this, you hit Tab to go into edit mode. You should see your verteces selected. We're in vertex select mode. And if you right click, you will find an option to merge vertices at center. All right, so that tiny little point, that little orange point right there, is what we're largely going to be using and extruding. So we'll want to select that. You can hit Tab to go back into object mode. We're going to lift that up. We're actually going to go into a front view. So if you hit 1 on your numpad, you should get to front view. Let's turn on screencast keys here so you can see the screencast keys here. So I hit Tab to go into object mode, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. I hit 1 on my numpad in order to get to front view, and we're going to use GZ. I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 squares up. I'm using the squares kind of to help me out here. And we need to put a couple of modifiers on here before we go any further. So while we're in object mode and we've got our point here, we're going to go down to our blue wrench and we're going to add a mirror modifier so that everything we do on one side will be mirrored to the other. And we can we're not going to really make any adjustments here, so we can click this little button here. The modifier is right here, but we don't have to see the settings. Next, we're going to go in and create a skin modifier. Okay, and you can see that a little plane appeared around the point here, and that's because it's basically attaching skin, a skin of sorts, a surface to that one point. Okay, and later we'll be probably modifying this, but for now we can actually roll that up, and we're going to be adding a third modifier. Third modifier is the subdivision surface modifier. It's under generate, second column all the way near the bottom. It's alphabetical. And in this case, we can see it's added some surfaces to our plane here. There was a plane. We actually have only 1 level in viewport and 2 in render. We actually want to make that match here. Let me stretch this out a little bit so you can see. There we go. So you can see this is levels in viewport. No, it sort of snapped back. There we go. So I want to make sure that that matches. So what we see in the render is what we're going to see in the viewport. So I'm going to hit 2, and you can see it's even more sophisticated structure here now. So you might want to, now we're normally used to using S to scale, but this is actually a skin. The point, you can't scale a point because a point is scaleless. So let me hit N here on my keyboard, and let's take a look at item. Let's see if I can find the setting here. I think I need to go into edit mode. There we go, edit mode. And in edit mode, under item, here we go. So you can see here the vertex data. So you can actually adjust the X in order to make that bigger, and you can adjust the Y to make it taller. So X is wider, Y is taller. I'm going to undo both of those. As a shortcut, you can hit Control A, and Control A basically kind of operates like scale, but it's not really scaling the point. What it's doing is it's, in a sense, scaling the vertex data, the skin data here. So we don't want it to be that thick. So we're gonna come and make that a bit thinner. You can always adjust it later. And now we need to do some extruding because we want to make some legs. So you just want to pick one side to work with, either the left or the right. I'm going to go ahead and extrude to the left, I think. So I'm going to hit E, and then lock myself into the X position and just come over maybe 1.5 squares here. And now I want to extrude down in order to make the legs. This is kind of like the hips that we just made here. Okay, so we're going to hit E and Z we'll extrude down, and we can come down to our red line here. All right, and we've got some legs here. And if you want to see the other points, you can hit the X-ray key, toggle that X-ray key, the two overlapping boxes up here. So like if I want to move this in, I can use GX to slide that in a little bit so that it's not so wide. So that looks about right to me. All right, so we're going to sort of pan up here. We're going to continue extruding our character. So I'm going to grab that middle button, or the middle vertex, I suppose, and I'm going to go up about the same number of blocks as we've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go E to extrude, in the Z direction. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm about 6 here. All right. And that gives us, that's kind of where our shoulders are going to be. We're going to want to go up to our neck. So we're going to hit E, Z, go up about one more, maybe 1.5. So kind of where our chin and neck meet. And then we're going to go up to the top of the head. So I'm going to use E and Z to go 1, 2, 3, about 4 up. Okay, now we can come back down to the shoulder. That's the shoulders, and we want to have a little shoulder on each side here. So I'm going to be moving to the left. So remember, stay to one side. So I'm going to go E and X like we did before, and come out just a little bit to get some shoulders going on there. And then I need my arm, so I'm going to hit EX to come out even further in order to make an arm. All right, there we go. Now this doesn't look like much of a head up here, and what we can do is grab that chin point here and hit Control A, and watch what happens as we scale that up. We get more mass, but it's not really where we want it to be. We're going to actually need to put a point in the middle here. And so what you can do, let me zoom in so you can see this a little bit better, is if you hold your cursor over this line between this point and the top of the head here, you can hit Control R, and there's a point right there, and you can left click and it kind of locks that point. And if you want to move it, you can just use G, in my case Z, to slide it around here a little bit. So I'm going to kind of move it up a little bit, and I'm going to use Control A in order to scale that out in order to make a bit of a head there. All right, and if I want to, I can bevel that. I believe if I hit Control Shift B, I can kind of bevel that in order to get more volume on the sides there. So that's looking pretty good to me. If I wanted to actually, so it's a bit of a blocky head. If I wanted to give it kind of more of a shape, I actually could put another, using Control R, another loop cut, which just because we're dealing with points, it only makes a point. And I can left click that and then use GZ to bring it down a little bit. It's affecting my skin here, but let me see if this works. I'm going to use G and X in order to try and shape my head here. Nope, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to undo that. Actually, I think I need to undo it. I needed that point before I beveled. So I'm going to Control Z a few times. There we go, before I bevel. And I'm going to put one more loop cut in here. So I'm going to hold this over, hit Control R, and you can see that point here. So I can use Control A to bring that out, and Control A. I'm a little too close. Control A. Too much, too much. I'm going to back it up here a little bit. All right, it's kind of where I want it to be. Now let's try beveling again and see if that makes a difference. We're going to hit Control Shift B in order to bevel. And I might use Control A up here to round out the top of the head a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. And now, because we've got this little point here, if we look at it from the side here and we use GY to slide that a little forward, you can get a little bit more of a human-shaped head there if you would like. All right, so we've got some more work to do here in terms of the modeling, but we're getting there. We've got our stick figure. If you want to put a little more mass on the body, you can grab the waist point here and hit Control A and kind of scale that up. And you can see it starts to add mass down here. And then if you want more of a chest, you can come up here and hit that middle key, use Control A, and slide that back. And if you wanted to slim up the waist a little bit, you could do that. You can hit Control R and left click to place a point here, and then you could GZ to lower that, and then Control A and slim that in a little bit. So you can kind of make some adjustments like that. You can even do muscles and stuff like that, but the fewer points is probably better for our pose a little bit later. So this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and put some feet and hands on our character, and then largely we should be done. So down here at the bottom, what we're going to do is I'm just going to use extrude and the Y in order to bring the toe out. So I'm going to hit EY, bring the toe out, which is going to give me 2 feet. One on the left, one on the right. Now, if I wanted to use Control A, I can flatten that, but watch what happens when I flatten it. Well, it seems to be working. I think I'm going to be maybe, I'm going to come up here and just do it in the, flatten it a little bit in the X. So I'm moving the X in, and notice it's doing the opposite there on the other foot. So this one looks about right, but that one it's rotated the wrong way. And it's rotating based along the root, and if you look real closely at this, you see a little dotted line here. That indicates that this is the root, and this skin modifier is kind of operating off of that. In order to get it symmetrical, if we choose one of these middle points like this one, and we come back over here to skin, and we can dial subdivision up and open up skin, you should see a mark root. And if we click mark root, then it changes that to the root, and because the root is in the center, the mirroring is working better, and our foot has been corrected down here. So now we've got 2 nice feet, 2 legs, a waist, some hips, shoulders. Let's work on our hand here, and to work on our hand, we're going to go ahead and look in the top-down view. So we're going to hit 7 on our numpad, and we're going to extend this out a little bit. So we've got this kind of as our wrist. So we're going to use E and X to extrude out, and that's going to be kind of the palm of our hand. And now we need to make some fingers, and we're just going to do 3 fingers and a thumb for this character. So we can grab this guy and use E and just bring it up. Okay, and so then we can kind of come back here and click that middle again, use E and maybe X this time to bring it out. I know they don't look like fingers yet, but they will. And then let's go a third time, E and X, bring it down. This, oops, not X this time. Let me right click and just use E to extrude, and that's a duplicate point. So I need to hit X and delete the vertice and then grab that middle point. All right, and now E to extrude. Oh, it's still not letting me extrude. All right, looks like I have an extra point there. It keeps, there we go. All right, now we're in business. All right, so I'm bringing that down. It's extruding now. You can see the skin changing with it. So, all right, and then finally we're going to come back one more time and use E to extrude, but this time a thumb, which kind of comes back this way. So now I know it doesn't look like fingers at this point, but if we box select these and we hit Control A and scale these down a bit, you can start to see that they look like fingers here. So we're going to extend these out some more, but we can use EX now to keep them straight. So there's a finger, there's another finger, and a last finger, EX, to bring it out. I think the thumb should come out maybe a little bit. No, we're gonna leave it there. I'm gonna move it though, so I'm gonna use G just to, oops, I've got another point there. Let me delete it. E to bring that out a little bit more. All right, now the palm here is kind of too skinny here, so we're gonna actually just click that, hit Control A, and sort of bring some more flesh back into the hand here. And maybe grab this and move it a little further out. And let's make our fingers sort of, I'm just using G to kind of adjust the hand here a little bit. I think that one's probably fine. All right, I am largely liking that. Now we need some more when we go to do some animation and posing. We need a couple more points in here in order to have knuckles. So if you draw a box draw around these 6 points, the 2 on each finger, what we're going to do is we're going to right click, and there's an option here to subdivide, which just means to add another point in the middle. And if you click that once, you'll see there's 1 point that's been added between the other 2 points, the left point and the right point. This little tab comes open. Before you do anything else, click the tab and change your cuts to 2. And if you come back up here, you'll see that there's now 2 points between each one. So that's a quick way of doing that. And now we can sort of twirl that down. Okay, now we just need to adjust the proportions to get things the way we like. I'm going to go ahead and hit N to make that panel disappear. We'll kind of rotate back here and see what we've got. So, all right, I am going to use Control A to thin that part of the arm down a little bit so it's a little bit more natural. If you wanted to, you can give, you can actually add another line in here, another point, I should say. Let's hit Control R, and there's our point. We can left click on that. We can use GZ a little bit to move it if we wanted to, but let's hit Control A, and then come back here and hit Control A to get the shoulders in a little bit more. Maybe increase the Control A to increase the chest a bit more. Control A around the hips to see if we can add more. It's looking like that's about as much as it wants us to add. Looks a little bit, there we go, somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, I think our character's looking good. And you want to leave these modifiers on them for right now in order to create the armature. In fact, we could create the armature now. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're in object mode. And you want to be happy with all of your actually the head's a little bit big. I'm going to alter the head here just a bit. I'm going to come in and let's see, I'm going to highlight all of those, use Control A, and that way it kind of scales down. So I don't mind an exaggerated head, but that's probably exaggerated enough. All right, so at this point, if you tab into object mode, one of the things you'll see over here in the skin, if you dial down the skin modifier, you might have it folded up, so click that little arrow, is this create armature, and the create armature will turn all those points into bones. What I should do is show you real quick all we've modeled. So this is the entire thing that we've modeled. Watch this. If we come into the skin modifier, and this little button here is the viewport modifier. If we click that, it makes the skin invisible. And so this really, and actually we can turn the mirror modifier off. This is the only thing we've done right now, is that we've sort of created this line here, the leg, the foot, the head, the neck, the chin, kind of. But these are all just points right here. But with these modifiers, it's pretty amazing. With the mirror modifier, it adds the right side, and with the skin modifier, it makes it appear like our character has some skin. All right, so in order to create an armature, you can come over here, and I think what we want to do is probably, we have to apply, let me go back into edit mode here. So if I go to tab, I think what we want to do is we want to apply our mirror, which will actually make these points over here, as well as the leg over here. And then if we apply our subdivision modifier, at this point I think we're done with it. We have to go into tab to object mode. It'll only apply. So you want to apply your subdivision modifier. Okay. Oh, it's turning blocky. So let me undo that. Let's try leaving that for now. There are some options, I think, in order to change some things. But let's try adding an armature at this point. All right, so all of these have become bones, and one of the things you'll find is under object mode there will be a pose mode, and you can highlight bones and kind of move them around, and it looks like it does automatic face weight painting, which stretches the skin based on kind of what's going on, so it tries to figure that out for you. So if we grab these guys here and we use R, I'm just using R to rotate, just kind of test out the the mode here. This is kind of like a puppet thing here. You can rotate the entire character with that. Here we could just tap the foot. Might have an animation to do that. If you wanted to move the leg, we could do that. In fact, what we might want to do in order to make it, and we're fine just leaving it like this, but if we before we had turned the armature on, we could have added a knee joint in there. That wouldn't have been bad to do if we wanted a more realistic walk cycle, but we're going to kind of do a zombie walk cycle, so this should work fine. So just make sure that you take a screenshot of this, get this submitted into the Canvas Learning Management System. Make sure you save it. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we will go into, we'll call this, it's not really a stick figure because of the skin modifier, but I'm going to call it 3D stick figure. And all right. And that concludes this tutorial. Thank you for your time and attention, and I will see you in the next tutorial.